Hey Joey,
Hey, sorry I'm late, guys. Nice to meet you, Michi.
nice to meet you. I think we've seen each other at some random handball tournament. Like I remember approaching three goalkeepers and like challenging you to some drill, and I even forgot the drill at this point.
Uh,
But I
Now that
remember
I'm
that.
looking at you, I remember that. Yeah. Hey, great to see you again. Thanks for being like our number one fan, like sorry, listener. Yeah, by far.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's always interesting. Because I don't have the American perspective, and so for me, this is my research. Like, how do the American college, semi-college kids think and right how to program stuff for them? Like, what makes them tick? What do they like? What are they looking for in handball?
We're gonna have a great conversation. I'm so excited about this.
Yes.
Mm. Uh-oh.
Rolling. Welcome back, shooters. Thanks everybody for tuning in for this fantastic episode of Team Handball Tuesday, our nice shooting straight handball podcast with JD and Joey. Today we are joined by none other than Michi Mensing from out on the western coast. Michi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, JD, and thank you, Joey, for having me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And as always, I'm joined by my good friend Joey. Joey, how are we doing this evening?
I am fantastic. I'm excited to talk to Michi. Somewhat in person here, not through the chat. So it's gonna be a good time.
For those of you who don't know, Michi is our number one top shooter. She and Martin Bilello are neck and neck for that top shooter position, but I think the last few weeks she's surpassed Martin in top shooter points. So that's like a goal percentage, or we'll come up with some stat. I'm sure we can give you a gold star somewhere in the chat. I'm going to apologize everybody in advance that my internet has been acting up the last week. So if we lose connection or lose everybody, that's my fault. So there's some storms coming through. But for those of you that are new to the show, look beneath me and you will see all our list of topics today. So while Michi and I were chatting before the show, we actually came up with another one. So there's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff we probably talk about, but we will try to cover a whole bunch of stuff. But first, I'd say, Michi, why don't you introduce yourself to all our listeners who might not know who you are?
Sure. So as JD said, my name is Michelle Mensing, actually in full, but most of the handball world in the US and even in Germany, they know me just by me.
Well, this is a bad start, folks. I jinxed this already right out the gate. Right out the gate. At least they're frozen in a nice, pleasant smirks. You know, that's nice. Um, this is the awkward points of the show that my internet just comes and goes, but it all turns out okay. We're back. Okay, good. It just killed right when you said my I go by Mish, and then done.
Well, okay, I still go by Michi. No wonder. That hasn't changed. No, so I'm known to the American handball scene as I play indoor, I play beach. I'm a referee on beach and indoor. And recently I've also been officially appointed as the assistant coach for the USA Beach Handball
Woot
Women's
woot
National Team.
Hey,
woot woot.
Yes.
congratulations.
So I am pretty deep into the handball world by now in the US. Myself, I've been playing the sport since I was basically able to walk. Grew up in Germany. I'm back in Germany. It's a lot easier to get into handball, I would say. But yeah, I've since age of 5, I started and I never stopped except for being injured. So even traveling countries, moving places, I've always been able to continue the sport.
How did you end up in the U.S.?
So I'm a software engineer by training, and after my bachelor's in software engineering, I decided, okay, let's give this Silicon Valley a try. And I was fortunate enough to land an internship here. And then I call it I got stuck because I actually had master's studies lined up in Germany. But handball was actually a big part of the decision to stay in the US. So I would say half, obviously, working in the Silicon Valley as a software engineer is not the worst decision. But then also definitely the other half of getting involved in the handball scene here.
Awesome.
So did you know that San Francisco had a team before you came over here?
So I've got the opportunity with the internship, and the first thing I did was to Google like, okay, handball clubs near Palo Alto. And the CalHeat came up, so very fortunate. And I then also discovered, oh, it's actually the CalHeat have one of 6 gyms across the US. I think it's now 7 with a full handball court. I'm like, okay, this is great, but I'm not
thought
sure.
you guys had the only one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's pause. Like, can you explain what the other 6 are then? Because I'm pretty sure it's just you guys.
No, so I think West Point or Air Force, one of them have a full-size court. We have
with
a full-size court. Yeah, with permanent lines.
Okay.
From what I hear.
So
and
the jury's
I
still
wanted
out.
to, I mean, Craig at some point had semi-permanent courts, right? Up in Chicago.
Yes.
Didn't we all?
And so we actually have another full-size court somewhere in Sunnyvale or in the Bay Area, at least from rumors, is what I hear.
Is that the April
like
Fool's
there's
Day
just random
court?
courts that just pop up, but nobody plays them. So for the West Coast, we have the only full-size gym that a handball team is actually using and playing on.
Jeez Louise.
Oh, we lost him again, folks. But in my opinion, the key factor is having full-size court with lines. That's the big thing for me. But I don't know. I would have said it was just CalHeat as the first and only true handball gym in America. Okay, we're back. This is going to be a long show, folks.
JD, we got to figure this out.
This is going to be rough. We're just
Can you use your phone's hotspot?
We're not doing that again. No way, Jose.
No?
Well, that was probably worse. My phone's trying to operate on all sorts of stuff. So in the chat, we got Plasma TBM says, sounds like an Air Force thing. West Point doesn't have it unless it's new. So
okay.
There you have it. Thank you, Plasma TBM from the chat.
Interesting. Well, that's super cool.
Yeah.
And so what year did you come over here?
2015 is when I moved to the States.
Nice. And are you planning on staying here for the long haul, or do you ever want to go back home?
So I have my sights set on being part of the Olympics. So I do want, and in any form of capacity, right? I don't necessarily plan on staying here, getting naturalized, and play at the Olympics. Like that is, I would have not done my job if I could still be competitive and compete for a spot on the U.S. national team.
Hell yeah.
That's
like a weird thing, but like I like really admire that. Like that's like the type of weird thing that I love. That's the mindset to have. That's awesome.
And so I've been looking at like getting involved as a referee, or I mean even as a competition manager. There will be a lot of roles outside of you being the player on the court or being a coach on the court that we need to staff, right? And the more handball knowledge these people have, the better for us and the better of an event we can stage at the Olympics.
Absolutely. And you know what, too? One thing that people kind of forget is we're going to need referees for these matches, right? And I'm not sure how many, obviously the teams get an automatic bid, but I think there's like a certain amount of like automatic like refs also. So, maybe you're not, maybe you don't want to play, maybe you're past your playing years. Like it's another thing to think about. So I like where your head's at, Michi. I knew I was going to like you, but I like you even more now. This is great. Sweet. So go ahead, JD.
I was just gonna say it's a lot of good points because like nobody really realizes, even the people that play handball now, like it's gonna take a small village / full city to put this event on for our governing body 8 years from literally a couple weeks ago. So we got a tall order that a lot of people could jump in and be a part of, whether you're directly on the court, whether you're in the press box. There's a multitude of jobs that you could be very easily involved with handball if you start now and start getting those connections made. And I know that that's something that a lot of people don't realize. And I try to tell them, like, hey, you may not be physically on the court as a member of the team, but like you sure can be somewhere else helping them out. So we need people. So everybody listening, if you want to get involved with the Olympics, this is a pretty easy ticket. You just got to care about handball for 8 years.
And beyond. Ideally.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't stop there. So anyway, sorry, Joey, continue.
Oh, no, you're good. Michi, so when you arrived in California, what was the state of like CalHeat? Because right now, in my opinion, it's probably it's the most well-run handball organization in the US. And what you guys are doing, I love. So where were you guys in 2015 and how did you guys get to where you are today?
So we were definitely not where we are today. So when I joined the team, we had maybe, especially on the women's side, I think that's where you can see the best transition. We had maybe 5 or 6 people that would show up for practice on a regular basis. The first tournament that I competed in with CalHeat was in Vancouver. We sent 2 girls. And so we had to partner up with Vancouver, which was a lot of fun, but still, like, you don't travel at this point with your team anymore.
You didn't play 2v7?
No, we opted to just mix teams and played the full game. But so I played with the guys the first tournament. My first medal with the first 2 medals that I collected with CalHeat were on this mixed team with Vancouver, and then with our guys team at the same tournament where like they just subbed us in to have more legs, right?
Sure.
So we were a good size of a team on the men's side and barely a team on the women's side. And then throughout, like from there to now, we really, I think a lot of key decisions were getting the right people for us on the board. So at that time, CalHeat was already a nonprofit. We had a board. For those of you who don't know, we have 7 board members. 3 are you have to have officially as officers, and the others are directors. And so at the same time that I joined the club, Martin pretty much joined the club as well. And we had a couple of other players that really would stay for a longer time in the Bay Area, join the club. And that stability helped us change a lot of things. So we took care. Martin got active on the board. Then a year later, I got active on the board, and we really took care of, okay, we need to be more transparent with our own players. What are we actually doing as a board? What are the initiatives? How can players get involved to really help the club move, right? So I would say that was a key element. And then from there, getting our financials in order. We've never had, when I joined the board, we have not done a budget ever. We were not even in the position to do a budget because we didn't really know our numbers. We didn't keep track of things. And so we changed that. And all of a sudden we were able to have a budget, and everybody at the board meeting was like, oh my God, this feels so weird. Like actually knowing how much money we can spend this year on youth activities. I'm like, this is amazing. It was so simple. And then the youth development picked up, and we thought the next problem was like, okay, we need more people. More people not only to play, but also more people to help us run all these amazing activities. And what we did, and I remember this was a long discussion to have had on the board level, but I proposed, okay, we make volunteer hours mandatory for every player.
Yes.
Who wants to receive monetary benefits from the club. So what CalHeat does, which I think a lot of people don't know, the club pays the hotels for nationals, right? Which is 3-4 days of competition, like in cities that are not the cheapest. This is a lot of money for someone, and especially across the entire year. So that is something we usually take care of. But we also said, if you want us to take care of that for you, you have to do volunteering hours. So every member of CalHeat who wants to get their hotel basically paid at nationals is required to do 6 hours of volunteering in a year. Like, we're not talking in a month. Like, we're talking in a year.
That's nothing.
You would think that, but there was so much arguing in the first place. I'm like, oh, no, like we shouldn't push players. Like, why would you enforce that? 6 hours? Oh my God!
That's like, one session of something. Like, you could go to one, day of games and be like, I'm done. Like, for the year.
Oh, I hate teaching kids how to play handball. No, keep the hotel and help the kids.
Yeah, and you have that option, right? You have that option. And I think we don't really run out of opportunities to get involved. Like, we give volunteering hours for someone being able to contribute to our website, write an article, post something on Facebook. Like, that already counts as your volunteering hour.
Gosh, and you guys are all tech gurus, so it's not like that should be too difficult. I mean, oh my goodness.
That's insane.
So really making use of what we had there, right? And then it just, and the first year we implemented it, we also then kept track of the hours, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm able to tell you, it's like that year we had over 1,000 hours in volunteering hours done by our club members. And we only have 80 or we had 80 club members at that in that year. So you can imagine, like, people did a lot more than the 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
And that's beautiful to see. And I think that is really the foundation on what we are sitting right now. It's like all the people really trying to get involved, obviously with a little bit of carrot and stick in the beginning, but a lot of them go way above that. Like, we have per volunteer, someone like Coco in our club, right?
Coco, shout out Coco, big Coco fan here.
Yeah, so she easily does over 70 hours a season just contributing her time to handball, right? No pay, nothing.
And she's been doing that a long time too. I mean, I know, like, since I played with CalHeat for a brief stint many moons ago, and Coco and the gang are still around, so it's good to see everybody still, contributing and things like that. But I love this idea.
And I think this dynamic of having this core of people who's been added for the longest time. I mean, a lot of our board members, they really carried this club for the past 20 years with Bernard and Jean-Marc. Like, Jean-Marc has almost two lifetime memberships with you at Team Handball right now. Like,
it's crazy.
So you have these people that really have been at it for the longest time, and then you have the constant flow of people coming in, coming out, that bring new and fresh air.
If I can just make an observation, I feel like that is just the key in general to a club success in the United States. It's just, even if it's one, like JD, like, I know that there will be a team in Ohio so long as, like, JD's there. And likewise with you guys, and likewise with Chicago and New York and all that. Like, the fact that you're able to, like, have people who are fixtures and who have been there for a long time and will be there for a long time, and then on top of that, get your house in order like you guys have, and then really, think strategically. It's a beautiful thing to see. It really is. I'm curious. So, do the members at the beginning of the year pay, like, dues, and it all kind of goes into a pot, or how does it work? Is it like a monthly thing?
So we actually we always have membership for an entire year, and we actually switched that model up because we realized that, especially for the Americans joining us, asking you to pay $300 for a year of a sport you've never played for doesn't really work. And so what we have is the first month is completely free. So you can try the sport for free. We are in the financial situation to allow that and have the fluctuation that comes with it, right? But have a first month completely for free, and then you can pay for either half the season or the full season. And half the season definitely includes our January tournament, the California Cup. So you have the guarantee that with this half season, you have a game at least on the court, because being on the West Coast with our next team 6 hours drive away in LA, if they practice or not, it's not easy to have competitions, right? We cannot just drive over to Detroit and be like, hey, Detroit handball, how about a scrimmage?
Yeah.
As much as I'd love that. Well, what you just said, though, is key. Like, not only are you going to have a game, you're not going to have to drive halfway across the country to play that first game. So that's excellent. That, in my opinion, is one of the biggest things to get an American to really buy in, is to not have them have to, if they live in Detroit, drive to Chicago in order to play a real game. So that's awesome. And LA, they have a nice, t-shirt club. As far as I'm concerned, LA is like just a t-shirt. I've never. Oh, you know what? I take that back. Somebody from LA, old buddy of mine, actually reached out to me today and said he was training with them back in January. So they do have people, but
I think they're starting up again. But definitely, I think 2 seasons ago, it felt more like a t-shirt, because a lot of the players that made LA Team Handball actually focused on the beach game. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of them didn't want to risk to get injured during indoor and really focus on the opportunities that they have with beach, right? And I think that's the curse and the blessing for LA Team Handball. But yeah, Danilo is a fan of talking about LA Team Handball, I think. And I think it also comes down to club philosophies. So one thing, and I know, Joey, you were like, why does CalHeat not let me play with them, right? And I'm someone that says I want to give every player in the Bay Area the opportunity to play. Yeah. So we have a lot of players here. Our team is usually full with these players, right? Mm-hmm. And Danilo is like always trying to break out of this mantra that I'm trying to push with. Like there's the wild card that you can bring for nationals, right? And there are some players that just do not have a club around them. Like Zubit lives in Arizona. There's mm-hmm. no club, no infrastructure, nothing. Why not allow him to play somewhere, right? Yeah. So those are cases on a case-by-case basis where I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll take you in. But other than that, like, I want to keep the CalHeat spots open for people that actually live in the Bay Area and contribute to our community.
And you know what? To reference back to, I think I know what you're talking about. It was one of the earlier, episodes where I was kind of going off about, unless you live in a place like San Francisco or New York City or Chicago, you really don't have much of a shot to play in elite and then to, get all those opportunities. And I agree, like, with your philosophy. I think that's how it should be, quite frankly. Like, I think if you live in California, if you live in San Francisco, you should be playing with CalHeat and right. Vice versa. We're just not in a stage with the sport right now where, like, you can have, like, where you should, in my opinion, have, like, mercenary guys. You should be focusing on, having Detroit-based people.
Mercenary guys should be making their own team. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Nyack, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, like a team like Nyack, for instance, like, just kind of bothers me because there's no local affinity whatsoever. Like, they could play a game, and I think this is true across the board, not just with them, but like they could play a game in New York City, and there wouldn't, like, nobody cares except for, like, their parents. You know what I mean? So, like, in order for the sport to grow at a local level and snowball into a national level, like, there needs to be some kind of local tie. Like, having just a mercenary team is not a great solution. But, like, what I was trying to say in the earlier conversation was a little bit in a different context, but I agree with what you're saying, Michi. Like, ideally, we need to create communities that are more local. Yeah, if that makes sense.
And again, it comes back to team philosophy, club philosophy. What are you trying to do with your club, right? If your goal is to win that medal at the lead level at nationals, right? Then mercenary team at this stage in the development in handball, always an option.
And congratulations for doing that. Hey, you did it. Great. You're not doing much for the sport at the same time, quite frankly.
Right.
Nobody cares.
So something like stemming a youth program, not possible if you are just a group of mercenaries, because you don't have the amount of people. Like, we're not even talking funds, but the amount of people that it takes to maintain such a program in a location.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I especially love what you guys are doing on the women's side as well, because it's just incredible to see you guys just in the context of, knowing that basically the way handball is in the U.S. is mercenary teams. And then on the women's side, forget about it. It's all mercenary teams except for Chicago, New York, and you guys. So, like, I respect the heck out of you guys, and you're doing great work with
and again, right, that's where on the women's competition, because we are so few that actually play the sport, I'm more on board with this mercenary character or clubs merging together in order to allow more players to play, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why it's always with a grain of salt, and you have to look at, okay, what are you trying to achieve? If you try to create more competition, then in the women's level, unfortunately, for the most tournaments, you still have to allow this cross team matchup. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the tournament would just be played with three teams. And then you get into the argument, okay, it takes so much money to travel somewhere to a tournament, then only play 2 teams 4 times in a row. Like, mm-hmm. doesn't really enjoyable. For but sure. Also at CalHeat, we had a long, like, we also had to make a lot of changes throughout the past 5 years that I've been with the club. Again, like, coming from this 5 people, maybe 2 people sometimes showing up at practice. First of all, getting to a full team, but then also getting recognition that we are a team. We had, so the women's team was, for the longest time, was called Smurfs at CalHeat.
Yeah.
We were running as Smurfs, and we would not run as CalHeat in competitions. And why? So I just traditionally, I think, like, how the team grew at the time, and the Smurfs were actually quite successful. Like, they won medals at mm-hmm. nationals as well.
I don't know the history behind the Smurf name, actually. Now that I think about it, I just know that it is what it is. So
it is what it is. Like, I played in the Smurfs jersey in my first year because those were the jerseys we had at the time.
You think it's because you guys had blue jerseys and everybody was fairly small, and okay, that was my assumption.
It did fit the stereotype of a Smurf. But right, so first action, okay, let's agree to play as CalHeat. Let's move the 2 teams under one umbrella. And then there's this constant mistrust of, oh, the men are out to do something bad for us, or, like, on the board they're like, they make only decisions that benefit the men.
Sounds familiar sometimes.
Right. And be it, like, that might have been true or not, but we wouldn't even know because we were not in the board. Nobody stepped up to be part of the board. So that's when we had the first, or at least in my time, right, the first female stepping up to, okay, let's get on the board. And it's so hard to motivate women to step up in that position. I'm like, oh, like, I'm not skilled enough, or, like, I don't know what to say. I'm like, all you need to do is fight for what you want to see in practice.
Son of a gun. Yeah, it's one of those things that people need to be not timid in this handball world, and you can take what's yours. I mean, there's a lot of potential out there for people to, really make a difference in this sport, because there's not enough people actually involved. Sorry. Okay. I filled in the gaps there from losing internet. We did pretty well. It was like 30 minutes between losses, so that's good.
Wait, was all that? Did we get that on Twitch?
Pretty much no. I just started talking once it cut out, so I just filled in the gaps. Last
word we didn't miss anything. We didn't miss anything.
Last thing you said was, them basically being timid and not wanting to rise to the occasion, and you telling them to take charge, and this is your time to speak out. So I kind of continued on with that conversation to myself.
JD, is it at least recording for Spotify?
Absolutely, Joey. Good thing you asked. Big shout out to Anchor, our new sponsor that helps us facilitate our podcast through many different platforms. Continue, folks.
All right. Yeah, and I mean, right, getting female representation on the board, like, for one thing, did help with the trust issue. Right, the girls were like, okay, we have someone to take care of our needs on the board, so we know that this person is going to look at what the decisions are made and make sure that we are not negatively impacted. So like those minor steps really helped a lot. Like get trust between the team, like rekindle the relationship between the men's and the women's team, and now it's like we are one family. And like whenever you are at tournaments, or we are at tournaments where you are, like you will hear CalHeat. A mix of all languages, but you will hear CalHeat.
For better or for worse, you'll hear CalHeat. That's for
You'll
sure.
hear CalHeat, yes.
Doggone it. Yeah, no, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And again, I can't express how much of a fan I am of what you guys are doing. What would you say is CalHeat's biggest weakness as an organization?
So right now we are at the crossroads of how do we scale to the next step? Because as I said, competition, we fly to 4 or 5 tournaments, and thankfully our members are doing a good job fundraising, using matching donations and like paying their way. But we don't pay flights either. So a lot of it still relies on people paying to play. And so the next step for us is like, how do we create competition around us? And one idea is splitting the club, right? The other one is growing into more gyms as an organization, right? Those are the things where we are right now in a situation where we can start to think about that, to create our own competition, and invite a different kind of competition to the Bay Area. Yeah. But it takes guts, because nobody wants to get rid of that family, right? The fear of losing what we have is big. And so one of the key things is, just as USA Team Handball did, we will now come up with a strategy for what we're targeting for the next years. And we just got a new board member who's rekindling his ties. So he was involved with handball around the Atlanta Olympics timeframe, and so I'm not sure how much I can already announce him, but we are really.
You're here to live here, folks. No.
But he brings in a lot of experience, and like also the American voice. Our entire board, we only have naturalized citizen, if at all, right, on the board. So we need more of this American voice influence to really see, okay, how can we grow next? How do we close the gap between our youth program and the adult program? Oh, we need to target the colleges, but how do we do that, with which resources? So big questions as a club that we right now are juggling and trying to keep the core that is CalHeat and like the essence still intact, I would say.
Interesting. And you know what? It's a good problem to have, quite frankly. If your biggest problem is how do we take to the next level, that's a good sign right there. Yep. What's the long-term vision? And I know it's a big club and there's a lot of decision makers, but it seems like you all share the same.
Oh, son of a gun. I apologize, folks, for the internet. My wife's Kaylee's probably watching some Hulu upstairs. Might not have the bandwidth to handle this. Maybe we should get an internet sponsor to help with our show. It might help us out. Okay, and maybe it's like a back-to-back thing, so we're probably good for another half hour.
Shit. So, well, hey, at least our Spotify listeners, this is going to be an exclusive Spotify episode. How about that? What's the vision, though, Michi? What do you guys dream of the club being 10 years from now?
So I do think that we still have we have like 2 dominant strengths of we want to get to a space where we have CalHeat players or players that come out of the Bay Area be represented in the national team. That is obviously one of the goals of our club as a whole, which I think everyone should more or less strive to as a club in the US. And then the other thing is, or the other 2 things are, one, competing internationally. So really being up there, being one of the top clubs in terms of development, but also at the competition level. And then the other thing, I would be satisfied if we just are able to play in a league in the Bay Area, right?
Sweet.
in like a league that I know it from Berlin, where I grew up, right? So when I made the shift, I was coming from Berlin, 300 clubs to Bay Area, one club.
Jeez.
So if we can somehow get closer to the 300, I'm like, that's all I want.
Michi, state of California, one club, essentially, right? Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. Yeah, that's incredible. I have no doubt if anyone can make that happen, you guys can for sure. I mean, it will be cool to see, an Oakland team handball, or not Oakland team handball, Oakland handball club pop up, because I don't like the team handball club thing. It's just very clunky, and when you throw THC next to something, it's kind of
people give you the wrong look.
Yeah, you get just a different crowd than you might be intending, but that's okay, and that's very cool to hear. So I'm curious, you're a very frequent listener here. What's the most surprising thing you've heard me and JD say over the course of our podcast? If there is anything that's stood out to you, or maybe that you didn't know or maybe disagree with.
So I think the fact that I was most surprised with is how well connected you guys are to actual American athletes, right? That have, and it sounds stupid like that, but right, coming from being an expat, it's like you have your connections that you make through work, but you've never broken into the school system here or the athlete system. So for me, it's always a big mystery of like, okay, how well do people stay in contact? Because what I see from the sports landscape in the US is like, you do sports to a very professional level until college, until you made it into college, and then you just stop. Zero sports whatsoever. And right, and I grew up in the world where you are in a club age 5, and like you stay with this club and you retire with this club. And I have a former teammate of mine. She just turned 80 and still plays handball.
80. Holy cow.
And
man,
like she is really like, she's an amazing person and really crazy to some extent, but like she does a handstand on a chair for her birthday on her 80th birthday, right? It's like that level of obsessed with sports.
That's awesome.
That I just miss in the US. Like I don't see it. Like I see you either made it to the NBA or you're a couch potato.
Isn't that crazy? In a country of 300 million people and such a sports, focus, like sports, almost like a religion in the US. Yeah, as soon as, and quite frankly, for most people after high school, they're done with sports. At the age of 18, they stop. If you're not playing, like you said, in the NBA, you pretty much might as well just not play at all. So we're about to hit our commercial break here. So I'm excited to pick up here in a minute. So maybe we can go ahead and pause, and JD, you can start asking questions.
One closing remark before we hit pause is that CJ says he can see me playing until I'm 80. Fully preparing to do that. But
you might have to transition out of the goal onto the field.
Oh, I don't know. I'll just stand there with my cane and my walker, just like, don't you throw these balls at this goal here, buddy. You whippersnappers. Okay, on that note, I think we'll transition to our commercial break and we'll pick this up when we get back here. All right, so I'm going to transition in. And I'm going to end, and you guys hopefully join back. Whoa, okay. Hope everybody's enjoying the show tonight. It's definitely been a bumpy ride with our Zoom connection and my internet right now, so I apologize for that. I would like to say thank you to our sponsor, Anchor. You probably already heard the ad at the beginning of the show. Gotta give them another shout out. Maybe they'll give us another 15 bones. I don't know. But they do a lot of good for our show, putting it out there on Spotify and some other podcast platforms. Big thanks to Michi for coming on. You can find her social media information there below, as well as some cool pictures from her playing day. So she's got a picture of her playing with CalHeat. Got another little beach picture from the World Championships in Russia. Picture of her coaching, some beach practice, and what I would assume to be a lot of her family members with a Michi jersey, which is really cool. So I kind of did something similar for my my groomsmen at my wedding. So they all got a Hummel jersey. So we'll wait for Joey to return here, and then we'll be back in business. Almost there, folks. We'd also like to thank one of our other sponsors, KT Tape, for all your tape needs. Check out KT Tape. And it looks like everybody's back. Nice, quick, and easy. And we're back, everybody. So thank you, shooters. So on that note of you being shocked about how many athletic friends we have in the American handball scene, or not just the American sports scene, I should say. One of the things that I've come to see now that I'm kind of post-college is that you're either playing in like a really like casual recreational league, like we call it beer league softball or kickball, or just something very low contact. Maybe you got a group of friends you play pickup basketball with on a Sunday morning kind of deal. And that's pretty much the extent of it. I'm very involved. I got golf Thursday. I run the golf league at work. I have that Thursday. We had volleyball, beach volleyball every Wednesday, doubleheaders, and then right now I got softball Wednesdays. We had indoor soccer, but you're not allowed to go inside for things. So I typically all year round have about 3 to 5 days of activities all the time, but that's just because I don't say no. My wife gets bored. She gets angry at me. She's like, "Why are you saying yes to all these activities? You don't want to spend any time with me." I'm like, "I just gotta stay in shape because otherwise I'll just become a couch potato," like you said. But from the friend standpoint, I mean, Joey and I both went to prep schools in Detroit and Columbus respectively, and I would say there aren't many superstar athletes usually produced from those schools. So when you get, maybe I speak for myself here. Yeah.
High is the best high school.
Our school is more known for our engineering skills, I think, was really the key claim to fame. But
my school would take your school's lunch money and
okay.
give you a wedgie.
Okay. Doyle rules over here.
Yeah, for sure.
But what's one of those things that like you start just create more friends through college, and you come to find out that they like played at a JUCO or at a D3 level, and then said, "I don't want to do this. Like, I want to get a better education and have fun." Because playing D3 is it's not really a good situation for anybody unless you really love that sport. And
oh, really?
I'm just saying, some people it doesn't vibe for. I'm just
if
saying.
Only we had a D3 athlete here to retort.
I can relate to that D3 athlete though, or I can relate to the fact that you choose education over pursuing a sport, right? Where in Germany, handball, unless you go to the top level, it doesn't pay necessarily the bills. Like even in the Bundesliga, you have a lot of players that have a second job. And a lot of the clubs in Germany, they are actually their entire youth program is set up in a way that they also take care that you finish school and you have an education outside of handball for your career after handball, right? Because in Germany, sports in general, like unless you are the top athletes or a soccer player, it doesn't pay necessarily all the lifestyle that you might wish for yourself. So there's a lot of players that have to make the choice. Okay, do I pursue education or do I pursue sports at some point, right? And I myself, I was at that crossroads. And I was so I was part of the selection camps for the German national team, and like Berlin, because it's, as I said, 300 clubs. Like it's a big handball scene. You have opportunities, right? And so I always played at the highest level in the youth, and age 14 is when they start selecting players for the youth national team in a very well-structured system with tiers that you have to get through. And so I went through these stages, and I remember, I think even age 12 or 13, I got asked, do I want to transfer to the sport-specific school? Because that would have allowed me to practice handball like twice a day. I'm like really go for it. But I heard like the school was not known for good education. So in my head, I was like, I don't think, or I'm not sure if I have what it takes to make it all the way to the top level. And I do value education and I have other interests. So I was like, no, I'm not going to the sports specific school. Like I chose my
destiny.
Yeah, I chose that path of like going to a regular school or another school. And I was just lucky because a lot of my teammates were attending the same school. So we were the best team. So we actually beat the team that was going to the sports specific school on a number of occasions, because we were just a very well-trained group. Like we've been together on and off, because it's always in by 2-year ranges, like on and off over the past 5 years, and like that makes a team. So we just played in that rhythm. But then we were in the regional competition. That was fine. And then you get to the stage where you compete across North and like all the parts of Germany. And then we actually hit the good sports specific schools that did a better job educating, especially the female athletes. And it was like the score, I think 40-10 or something like this. And like
beat them that badly.
Yeah, in like the round of best of 8 or something. I don't know. Like we never won the title for Germany, and something like the youth Bundesliga didn't exist at that time. But it was like you could see the limit, or like someone who really trains for the sport twice a day at least, strengthening and conditioning practice, and then someone who regularly attends school has 4 times a week practice, right? It's not like we didn't train, but we just did 4 times a week and not 8 to 10. But that was enough for me to get basically to the level just before the national team. So I actually was part of the Northern Germany selection in my age group.
No big deal.
Yeah,
just casual.
It was amazing to be part of this, and I've learned basically how the machine works and how they filter out the best players in Germany. And so a lot of the scouting techniques or a lot of the preparation steps, I can still draw from that time, because I trained under a lot of good coaches, and I've seen the selection process, how it happens in Germany. And they are also very vocal about it. They share that openly through their platforms as well. And I think that is also what allows me to look at these things in America and like, okay, this is where we can get more professional, or this is where we can filter this way, or help players in that way to evolve.
So
very interesting. And go ahead, Jay.
No, you because you keep going. I got my list of questions. I have more written down, so I'm
zip it. It's zipped here.
I was gonna go on a separate tangent off of that, so you go ahead.
Okay, fine. But yeah, no, that's where your observation of just like the system of how sports are in the U.S. is just, like you said, it's just completely different. Like there's it's hard to even compare what we have going on here, what the experience of an athlete going on here is compared to what happens in Germany. It's just, yeah, it's just very interesting. It's different, but yet it seems like there's also some similarities too, where you can still play even if you know you're not going to go to the highest level. For instance, like if you played a sport, I don't know, like lacrosse, for instance, and you know you're not going to be a Division I lacrosse player, which is the closest thing, at least a few years ago. You get to professional, but if you just enjoyed playing it and still had the skill level, you could get an education and also play Division III, right? And some Division III teams could, play against Division I teams and it'd be competitive. But yeah, that's all that to say is very, very interesting observation there, Michi. JD.
Yes, there was no hate on D3 athletes. I was just saying.
No.
Sometimes people end up going there and then they don't actually love the sport as much as they thought they did. That's all I was putting out there.
That is a true and fair point.
but that was one of my things. Like I looked at going to Marquette, and Marquette was just then starting to get a lacrosse program, and I was like, I could walk on to their lacrosse team and be a D1 team and go to Marquette. And then I was like, well, it would cost a lot of money, and I'd get a scholarship, but the scholarship doesn't cover everything, and then it's 6 hours away. And I was like, well, Ohio State's pretty cheap. It's very close to home and easy to get to, and a lot more wiggle room if you end up trying to change majors or something like that. So happy with my decision. I've slowly built my empire, and we're trying to work on
I'm happy with your decision as well, JD.
Thank you. I'm sure a lot of people are. I'm not sure the Marquette handball team has the same ring to it, but maybe somebody in Milwaukee can get that off the ground.
Ryan Peterson, we're looking at you.
Yeah, Ryan. But yeah, like, you bring up, I'm sure you're talking about our episode with Wick, and that's kind of like our goal is like we have a whole list of other people I'm trying to like coordinate with just to get people on the show about have like a high level sports background, like a couple of guys that run like this kind of, I wouldn't even call it CrossFit, it's just like an intense strength training program that they work out every day at 5 a.m. and I would love to go work out with them just to meet them, but it is 45 minutes from my house, and I'm not waking up at 3:30 to drive over there to go work out at 5.
Are you dedicated enough?
I am not.
Yeah,
I am 100% not. But they play.
You gotta want it.
They play their own version of handball called Zoo Ball, and I just want to go for that one day. But the two brothers, they both played in the NFL, and then their one friend plays like World Series of rugby. So like they're all like pretty high level athletes, and we got the Greater Columbus Sports Commission, one of their employees that kind of I work with a lot to help set up our events in Columbus. Trying to get her on the show. I think she played college basketball, and then there's some other people I've got on my list, and we actually reached out to us on Twitter just this past week. He's like used to coach with the White Sox, and yeah. So he's got a Major League Baseball coaching background. So
yeah. You reached out to us?
Well, Martin kind of forced his hand, and so I like it. So,
Martin is really good at that. Yes.
Shout out number two shooter Martin right there. We might be gunning for that number one spot, Michi. You'll have to watch out.
For number one.
I can tell you, I think there's a lot of people that have felt Martin breathing down their neck and have acted just because of that fact. Like even at CalHeat, like people volunteering, like Martin is there to ask you, and he doesn't care how often he has to ask. Like he just asks you every time. But he then also tricks you sometimes into stuff where it's like, so would you be willing to help us at Patil? And you say, sure. Like I anyways plan to travel to Europe over the summer. I'm like, sure, I can do that. And then a week later, you find out that you just became the head coach for the second youth team that we're sending to Patil, and you're like, this is not what I signed up for.
Thanks, Martin.
Jeez Louise. He's
going to make a great CEO. Of USA Team Handball. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, hopefully.
We'll see. We don't know. We still got many weeks till we find out. Michi, you don't need to say if you put your name in the hat. I wouldn't be surprised if you slid your name in there either. So it's too much.
So one thing, I'm really good at operations. I do club operations all day. Like I can process and program you anything you want. But the one thing I do not do is fundraising, or I don't know how to do well, especially in the US. Right, because I feel you need to know who you're trying to address, how they're ticking. It was like, if you want to do fundraising at a scale that USA Team Handball needs fundraising, I'm the wrong person.
hey, don't worry. Neither do like any of the previous CEOs either. So you're fine.
Yeah, but again, like it gets to the point of like, what do you need to fill your board with to actually make an impact, right? And I felt, so I was really sad to see Barry go, because I felt it was a great addition of skill set to the board that we had, right? But again, like it also takes the dynamic of the board, and we had that at CalHeat. Our board there have been times where people enjoy being on the board, and there have been times where you can't stand the other directors, right? And the club has to survive through these periods, and you have to make sure that the board is fitted with the right people that understand each other and that are pulling towards the direction that you want the club to go to.
Yeah,
definitely. And the one guy I know, the one guy on the board I know too, Michi, for USA Team Handball, is a total jerk. His name has two letters. I hate him. No, I definitely. It's an interesting dynamic having to align a bunch of people on the board as well as the vision of the CEO. And again, that's one thing I really tip my hat to you guys on, because it seems like you guys are doing a great job.
We now do. I would subscribe to that. If you would have asked me in the beginning, probably not as much.
It's all good. You figured it out. It's a process. So I'm curious, this is a big tangent, but who is your favorite club team for the men and women? And who do you think is the best player in the world for both men's and women?
Boom.
Those are really tough questions for me, because interestingly, I don't watch a lot of handball myself. Because I spend all my other time with other handball stuff. I'm like, okay, like watching another hour, I'm like, this is
right there with you.
For sure.
But I mean, I've only played in 2 clubs my entire life. One was Füchse Berlin. And the second one
it's a pretty small club, like doesn't play in any, premier kind of games or anything like that. They're.
Yeah, and so interestingly, the current head coach of Füchse Berlin, they just hired someone really young. We started handball together, like in the same group. So something must have been right with the coach of that group. Like we both did get really crazy about handball. So it's like these crazy connections. But so Füchse Berlin, and I was part when they made their resurgence to the Bundesliga. I was there like cheering on, and so Füchse Berlin will always have the special part in my heart. I do like Flensburg though as well.
Oh yeah.
But that's also, I think I'm also biased there because my uncle used to be the coach for Holger Glandorf.
Really? No kidding.
And so, and on the men's side, in terms of players, is Stefan Kretschmer and Oliver Rogisch. So I'm very German biased, I would say. But those two are also people that now, past their career, have still an impact on the handball scene, are great role models. Oliver Rogisch is one of these players that only played defense more or less, which it was kind of it's kind of a novum, I would say, or has become less popular. But like he was just such a character on the field and had such a presence. And so when I played at a youth level, like I would aspire to be that defense coach, because defense is what wins games, in my opinion.
Defense wins championships.
Yeah.
You're preaching to the goalies here, so.
Right, and so he was someone, like, no matter through injuries or anything. I think the one game at the 2007 championships, World Championships, he actually got a cut on his head, and he's like, and they have video from that. He just goes into the locker room like, just put some clips into it, and I'll go out to play. Like that was his kind of attitude.
It's a man's game.
It's a man's game to some extent. But then on the women's side, Christina Niago, and also a lot of the players from the Netherlands are really my favorite, because I think the Netherlands as a team in itself play really beautiful and have a good flow in the game. So it really is nice to see. They have a right mixture of the Mikkel Hansen style, just shoot from the back, and I'm actually really able to go through the defense. So those are my favorites.
Those are some that was a great answer. That was probably one of my favorite answers to any question on the podcast so far, because not only I'm a big Flensburg guy first and foremost, but I'm also kind of like, I go down weird rabbit holes on YouTube, and like I like Fuchs of Berlin strictly because of like what they do like before the games, like sort of like Flensburg, like their whole like they have like a fox on this like big screen, and they have some like German guy like, oh yeah, it's just like super intense, and I'm just like into it. And I think Heinevetter played for them for a while, and I liked him. And also, by the way, if your uncle still is friends with Glandorf, I know he's either retired or about to retire, and so tell him to give me a call because we are looking for players. So,
so I mean, Glandorf, before he moved to Flensburg, right? He played for Norton, Haske Norton.
okay.
They are now in the second league again. I think they had to file for bankruptcy. That's why they were no longer in the first league, and that's where Glandorf moved. But yeah, I mean, I can ask him obviously if you if he's willing to connect you.
If he finds himself in Detroit at any point, just let me know. I mean, whatever Flensburg paid him, tell him I'll pay him double, and I'll just.
And I mean, so JD, you included the picture of my family, right, with all with Mensing jerseys. So the interesting fact is we all have that last name, and we all play handball. So it's not just people that I put a jersey on. We could we could make a team of 7.
That's awesome.
And my grandpa would be coaching.
That's so cool.
Because my grandpa played handball. My mom played handball. Like I play handball. Like so, 3rd generation handball in my family. So it doesn't get much crazier. And so I am definitely biased towards the sport, but my mom never pushed us to actually go for it. Really? So me and my 2 sisters, we all started with handball, but not all of them stick with it. So yeah, it's just cool. We are planning on doing like going to a tournament as a Mensing team, and
that'd be awesome.
Do it.
Yes,
that's so cool.
Absolutely.
Maybe one day when me and JD are grandpas, we can play goalies for
when I'm 80. When we're both 80.
Yep.
2 things. So I'm kind of like, take this for what it's worth. I'm kind of happy that Glandorf's on his end of his career, just because when I show people like handball highlights and they see that guy, they're like, this is like my weird uncle. Like, how is he like an elite level athlete? And I'm like, well, all right, maybe I'll find a different video. So
that's a great point.
So I'm kind of happy on that side. And then Kretschmar's the guy with the mohawk, right? Or he had a mohawk.
He had very crazy hairstyles throughout his career, for sure.
Did you know that he is also like super tight with like Dirk Nowitzki and
he actually spends his summers. He spends his summers in Florida, I think.
God bless.
Goes golfing and everything. We actually reached out to him.
All right, you reached out to him, so that's the important part.
He contacted. So we reached out to him and invited him to the Cult Cup. But because that is always colliding with the European Championship or some other championship, it's just the worst time for him to travel. And we don't have anything in the summer that we can invite him to. His daughter plays beach handball now, so that's the opportunity to get him over.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, what's it gonna? Do you guys like? Is beach handball on your radar at all? Because I feel like that's one avenue that's becoming very popular, and it's something that I think Americans can really latch on to is a little beach handball. So what's the CalHeat stance on playing in the sand?
So CalHeat is organized in committees, and we make a committee for every focus topic that we have. So we have one committee for youth, one for travel, one for equipment, and then one for beach. So we have throughout the summer, we have beach and grass handball practices. We do practice on a regular basis, usually during the summer, unless we are otherwise occupied with COVID or wildfires. And
sure, naturally.
Like the natural thing. And then we did win the SoCal Beach Handball Championship 4 years ago now.
Take that, LA.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago. where we really throughout the entire summer we had practices weekly. There were girls were coming to practice on a regular basis, and we were able to essentially beat what was then the US and Mexican national teams that would come to SoCal. All right, which shows you that at that time there was not a lot of effort put behind actually the national teams, and they have since grown, and now we would definitely not beat them again. But yeah, beach handball is definitely one part of the way also we get players into the indoor side. So we have players that come and join us for the beach side and then move over to indoor during the winter. But we also have players that just join us for the summer. And that's fine, right? For us, like, we just want them to learn and promote and grow the sport. And we have this person, he comes back every year. As soon as I put out the first grass handball practice, he's there.
Dedicated awesome. To the grass, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have to ask, because like I've never been to San Francisco, but what is the beach scene like? Because I know Northern California is mostly like a rockier coastline. Is there actually any solid beach out there?
Yeah, so we have on the west side of San Francisco, you have Ocean Beach, which is a pretty good beach. It's very fine sand and very dark. So it actually, honestly, I like to play there more than down in Huntington because you don't sink as much into the sand. Okay. So from that point, it's cold. It's overcast with cloud fog, right? So I've got my worst sunburn in San Francisco because I did not take, like, it was overcasted. Like, why would you put on sunscreen? But
yeah,
it's and like I carried that sunburn around for half a year for sure.
Oh, jeez, I know the pain.
And yes, and I think even on the Russia tapes, you can see my legs still being too colored. It's really bad. But so we have Ocean Beach in San Francisco, and then we have Santa Cruz, which is a little bit shellier, a little bit more coarse grain sand. So if you don't know how to spin well, you will open up your knees. Right? Because you just slide or get burns. So that doesn't necessarily help, but like we've been trying to branch out to both locations last year.
Very cool.
Good.
Very cool.
I feel like this was a perfect segue to our next topic, which I'm not sure if either of you heard, but I'm sure Michi did. But Joey, I'm not sure if you saw that today a TV network, all sports television, will be broadcasting the 2018 Beach World Championships from Russia.
No way.
Oh.
Wow.
So,
that's awesome.
Disclaimer.
Oh.
I hope they edited the footage and made it so that you do not see women exposed all over, because that was one negative aspect of the footage in Russia. It's like very misogynistic, very much focused on the right spot.
I'm gonna make some comments to the guy that's doing this, and I'm gonna let him know.
Yeah. So you should definitely watch out for that. Because it has been a topic for a lot of the women's, and I don't know if you know that, but for beach handball, right, the rules state that you have to play in a sports bikini, and there are regulations around how wide the side strap of your bottoms can be, right? And for the opposite, for men's, you have regulations on shorts cannot be shorter than knee height or anything. And so
it's like the
uniforms uniforms is a big topic, right?
Oh
and
my gosh.
if you're spinning and turning and landing, like, you will land in positions that you feel exposed at some point.
Jeez, and you're on the ground all the time. I mean, it's a lot of like hit and friction kind of, okay. Oh boy. All right. So I'm going to definitely, I talked to the guy about it last Friday. I will definitely bring this up in my follow-up discussion with him this week. Thank you, because I would not have. I've watched some games on YouTube, but maybe I wasn't looking for that. So I'm glad you brought that to my attention. But wow, okay, Because the thing is that the guy that's facilitating this with all sports, he really wants to really put kind of unconventional games on his network, so it'll be 24 hours of sports, because it'll be sports that you don't normally get to watch.
Nice.
ESPN.
Yeah, it's literally the Ocho. He's going to fill it with documentaries, any other kind of like, I wouldn't say obscure sports, but like sports that are popular somewhere else, maybe that Americans don't have a lot of knowledge about. So the plan is to start with beach. The IHF was more in accordance with beach, and then they're going to move on towards maybe indoor potentially. So a lot of potentials there. So if people are looking to like submit any game film, like he wasn't against club games. So if we have like some high quality club games that have right kind of, I'd say, camera angles, you don't want to put something on there that's at court level. But I know CalHeat has a lot of, I would say, legitimate footage. So
yeah, so we don't have footage from the beach handball scene much in the US, but if he's really interested, I can try to connect him with the arena tour guys in Spain. They are the most professional when it comes to production around beach handball and also beach handball leagues. And they have highlight reels and everything. And I'm like, if he's interested in that, I'm sure there is an interest also from the other side.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely I'll send him a message, see if that I'll connect you guys if that's the case. I think the big thing that I told him is that regardless of what we put on there, I think there needs to be some kind of English commentary, because people are going to tune in and be like, what the heck am I watching? Why is it in another language? I don't know why that person just got 2 points. So I think that's the big thing.
And I do think that you'll find a lot of the current beach members that would be more than happy to do commentary on
awesome. The excellent. Joey, did you
who's a better athlete? Michi, who's a better athlete, you or ABA?
Ooh, the ninja.
That one is an easy one. So just athletic ability, ABA is the better athlete. I mean, he trains for it, and the way he approaches the game is really admirable. And but I would say I'm at the same level at seeing opportunities with like in game. And playing to players. So when I started with the beach handball community here, my nickname for the longest time, and probably still is, Sneaky German.
Sneaky German. Really rolls off the tongue.
Wow.
I love
it. Because and my indoor coaches always complained, it was like, you play circus handball. Because I would play, like, I would see a player, kind of like this Sagason article, right? I would see a player and I would knew like he would be in that position. So I'll just look away, do something here, and then shove the ball behind my back, and it would land in the player's hand. And they were completely surprised that the ball was all of the sudden in their hands. And so that's how I got the Sneaky German title, because I just did my regular thing. Like I didn't think about it. But it takes some getting used to if you're playing with me and you all of a sudden have to expect that the ball is just all of a sudden in your hands.
Sure.
Michi,
so what you're saying is you're better than ABA is what you're saying, basically. All right.
No, so and ABA has such same quality, and he's putting the work into like I think he's one of the most detail-oriented players that I've ever gotten to know, because he really goes into the rules and like thinks about, okay, you can dribble in beach, right? Which not a lot of people know, because like, how do you dribble on the sand? But there is a way to dribble, and you basically place the ball on the ground and then tap it across the sand. And so ABA figured out to the detail of like, what movements can you do that are within the rule boundaries, and that are still considered dribbling by dribbling it through his legs, like with his basketball background, and like creating these opportunities by completely confusing his opponents with these just using of the rules, right? And that is a quality that you don't see in a lot of players that take a sport to that level. So yeah, definitely shout out to ABA on the good work he's doing, and like really, I think also a lot of the players look at him and say like, okay, interesting, this is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps the sport in itself grow.
He's another guy like. Oh yeah, go ahead, JD.
I was just gonna say, definitely titling this episode "The Sneaky German" or something along that. That's definitely gonna be the title of the episode. And two, since I first saw Handball Ninja, I was blown away because he and I tried out for the national team at the same time, and I was taking a shot from him, and he just switched arms midair, and I was like, "Who the heck is this guy that he's got two arms that he can throw equally hard with?" So, and I think where he gets some flack from people, but it's also goes back around the other way, is his social media level, is that he's got a lot of followers, he's got a lot of social media recognition, but to the cost of some people getting frustrated that they're like, all right, FBA, like, can we cool
Those
it
people
down?
can kick rocks.
Yeah.
I mean I've heard these arguments around him from also other players, right? And from a coach perspective, if you are selecting someone from the national team, ABA is really professional when it comes to practices and the way he approaches them, right? So as a coach, you basically have to make the decision, okay, does it bother you what he's delivering outside of the practice? Does it disturb the team dynamic, right? Because you still, in the end, you're producing a team, you're not producing a single best athlete. And I think this is a perspective that the coach has to decide for himself. And where a lot of other players that do not put that same amount of effort in just struggle with. They struggle understanding how can he celebrate himself on Instagram as much as he does, and like, is he showboating or not? But then you play against him, or you see what kind of work he puts into it. It's not showboating, right?
Exactly.
It's really he puts in work. But it's an attitude that not everyone gets on board with.
And you know what? Like you said, he brings it when he does play. He's a nice guy too. Every time I've interacted with him, like super nice. He'll answer any question. I've never like officially met him before, but I'll, anytime I want to talk to him, he's down. On top of it too, you look at the guy's social media, and what comes to my mind is he's great for the sport, in my opinion. Like, there are certain people out there, and maybe I'm just one of them, who like, all right, like, maybe even if you don't like the content he's creating, at least you respect the fact that he's putting effort into it, and he's
there's content out there. Like,
there's content out there, for the love of God. For everyone who's throwing stones, check your own house, man. Like all these people who want to criticize, like, do something yourself, right? Show, don't tell that he's doing it wrong, right? And in my opinion, I think he's doing great, and I think he's good for the sport. I'm a big ABA guy.
This exact topic got me heated today because the US Team Handball sent out the Penn State video, and our Ohio State group me was like, "Oh, well, where's the Ohio State video? We didn't get an Ohio State video." I was like, No. You guys don't understand. You have to make your own freaking video, and then they'll put it out there for you. And you know what? None of you guys are trying to do anything. I'm the one driving all of you guys. And none of them are probably watching this right now, and they're not going to listen anyways later. So I don't have any problem saying that. But, I went back and I showed them all the videos I had made professionally done when I was a student. And I was like, it doesn't take it doesn't take that much these days to make a video. You guys all are sitting there TikToking, and being Kesha on your clock there, TikTok, and you can find time to do that, but you sure can't find time to videotape or take the video that I already have made for you. I already filmed all sorts of stuff for you guys. That's my tangent as a coach trying to be a social media influencer at the same time for them. Yes, it's a losing battle.
Yeah, and I'm fully with you. Like, the struggle of, we need more content out there. And unfortunately, if I'm the one playing, I cannot tape myself.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly.
If I'm the one coaching, I also shouldn't tape myself. So we need that third person that is willing to just be there and tape somebody else. And that is the hardest part, honestly. Getting that someone who doesn't want to be part of the action, right? The beach handball community at this point, all of us are more or less playing. Like, there's nobody that just sits around and does the video. Or there are some people that have gotten or showed more interest in that, but the same at CalHeat. Like, we would love to be more videographic about all that we do, but we just don't have that extra person or that.
Oh, snap, crackle, pop. Rice Krispies, folks. That dang Zoom. Sorry, I got heated talking about Ohio State there. Totally blanked on the time left with Zoom. Hopefully our guests here and Joey can get back pretty quick. Joey's quick on the whip, so I'll get him back in. But man, that Zoom, it'll get you. It sneaks up on you, you know. You're never expecting it, and then boom, Zoom. Sorry, folks, we're out of time. But I hope Michi can join back here quick. We'd like to thank all our viewers for sticking around. We got a solid 5 right now. We're up in that West Coast numbers. You know, it might be bedtime on the East Coast, but it's still peak dinner time on the West. So you guys switched cameras here, so now I gotta do the old switcheroony. So give me a hot second. But yeah, I was livid with my Ohio State guys today because they're very, very much like, oh, JD, like, where's this? Oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you guys, you don't want to run your own accounts. You don't want to, oh, JD, we don't have any pictures. You don't take any pictures. I was like, I have to be coach with a camera on the sideline trying to instruct you guys. And then I have to tell my wife to show up, and then she's got to take pictures. And it's just a lose. Nobody has, you know, you're not going to have a good time.
Well, Michi, it sounds like you have a solution to that problem, and that being volunteer hours.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe
that's how we staff all our live streaming. So that was one of the initiatives that I just started at CalHeat. It was like, first of all, we were paying for CalHeat streaming. I think we were paying $4,000 just to get a few games streamed at the Cal Cup.
I'm gonna lose my mind with that. You just said that,
and I looked at this number and I was like, and for the quality, like, they wouldn't cover the earliest games, they wouldn't cover a Friday, like limited setup, right? A little bit more professional, maybe
$4,000.
Yeah, like you have the personal hours, you have the equipment that you bring, the camera. So there is some cost to it, obviously, if you want to hire someone. But I just looked at this price and I was like, okay, there must be a cheaper way to do this. And so I went online. I was like, okay, I just need a DSLR, I just need OBS, and I'll program the scoreboard myself, and done. $0 setup.
Boom.
Silicon Valley ingenuity right there.
Yep.
Right. So that the benefit, obviously, of my profession, but yeah, and ever since we've been running our own live streams with that setup. And so you see me at tournaments usually running from game to my camera and back, and like setting it up or burgling people to take the score. And that's where volunteer hours go to, right? During a tournament, we make an effort to every tournament that we go to, and my setup travels with, we stream all of the CalHeat games because we want more content out there. And we also make an effort to televise equal amount of games. So we have equal amount of women games as well as equal amount of men's games when both teams are at the tournament, right? And if they play in parallel at nationals, the streaming plan is made up in the beginning, and it's like, okay, these amount of streams for the girls, these amount of streams for the guys. So that everyone gets to be televised. And for us, being a club with a lot of expats, right, it's a way to connect with the family in Europe. They get to play, they get to cheer us on all the way from Europe, right? Or Asia or South America. We have people in Egypt watching.
That's awesome.
I think that the third largest group is still from Egypt, and we have no Egyptian player. And I'm like,
how?
Why are we popular in Egypt?
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's like our Twitch stats. I'm always dumbfounded on where these countries are coming to play, and I'm like, we don't have any I don't have any people in these countries who's tuning in on Twitch to watch us from there, watching replays. But yeah, no, that's something that I'm glad that you use OBS for that. So I'm gonna need to figure that out when I get my AC adapter for my camera that I've just been dragging my feet on. I bought one and then it ended up being for Canon Rebel T6, not a T6i or whatever. And I was like, are you kidding me? How are those not the same? Oh, geez.
I hate it when that happens.
So and then I asked Amazon to
But
return
what
it.
kind
and
of
then,
adapter? I don't even use an adapter.
Oh, well then what am I doing wrong then?
Columbus, Ohio over here is living in the year
Jeez.
2004, right?
I
Welcome to
bought my
2020.
camcorder here. It's got the VHS tapes; they just won't fit in. No, I don't know. We can talk offline more, but I assumed I needed a battery adapter so I didn't run out of battery.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So,
that
okay.
helps for sure. Yes.
Okay, so that's the only adapter I was talking about, but
Yeah.
this seems like the video is a good segue, Joey. Unless you got any more questions here, this is a good segue to our next topic, which is tagging. So for those of you that are maybe not on the coaching scene or maybe not familiar with sports at a recruiting level, but tagging is something that's like really important for a lot of like high school kids that maybe they're on the fringe of getting a scholarship or something like that, and they're looking to
Heaven forbid they go D3.
Oh yeah, right? God forbid D3.
Oh, that's way worse than death right there.
Oh, jeez Louise. Point being,
I'm never letting you live that down.
No, never. I won't ever escape it. Joey's a college athlete. I'm a scrub. But
that's not what I said.
That is exactly how I interpret it, and I will hold you to that one.
I just got to defend my D1+2 pals. All right, that's all I'm saying.
Go Dutchman.
Yeah.
So what I was saying though is that if you're, say, a sophomore or junior in high school, you want to get into any kind of college for sports, you got to start tagging, and whether that's your dad, your coach, yourself, you need to figure that out. And so Michi and I were talking before the show, and we actually were part of a kind of selection group with USC Team Handball to get a tagging software known as Sideline XPS, whatever you want to call it, it's really cool because I've never done tagging with any other sports, just handball, but it's really nice how they've done a good job of like programming it so that it kind of can help you put the video clip into the correct category based on what that action was. So let's say Michi runs down the court and scores when it was on a fast break, so it'll help categorize it into a
which
fast
happens
break.
all the time.
Yeah, because she's sneaky. So
sneaky 80 minutes a game because of course we're playing overtimes.
Yep. So it'll categorize it into fast break, who scored, a whole bunch of other things like that. On the flip side, let's say Joey is saving a 7-meter penalty shot. You can put a save for Joey, and you can put it that it was a 7. You can put like where it was on the goal, if you really want to get that in depth. So that way, and then both these times, these clips then can get categorized to the player or the situation and can get sent out to the team so that they can review their own stuff. And creating those clips are what really helps the high school athletes make their own highlight tapes, basically, to put on YouTube to share with coaches. And there was a time late or early COVID where I was seeing a lot of high school kids freaking out because the colleges that they were getting recruited for were not offering that sport anymore, so they didn't have anywhere to go. So they were just putting their highlight videos out there, and I was like, "Oh, why don't you come to Ohio State and play handball?" Didn't get a lot of bites, but shooters shoot.
Try.
Exactly.
Hey, I will say too, JD, XPS. When I went to, I watched Flensburg practice, and then they they have like bleachers in the practice facility, and then Lasse Spahn came up to where we were sitting and said, "Hey, can you guys leave? We're about to do a XPS session." And they had like a big projector, and it was like they used XPS. So just want to say it's a legit software.
No, yeah, there's a lot of professional clubs that use XPS. There's a couple other out there like Dartfish and I already forgot the one, GPM, which isn't really tagging. It's more of a coaching tool. But they have a lot of other aspects within that. Drills, you can build your practice plan, schedule. It's just like a one-stop shop for coaches. So, Michi, you know a lot more about this, and you being on the software side, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about tagging and what tagging can be done here in the U.S. as we go forward with handball.
So I think so first of all, I think we are very fortunate to have such a good relationship with XPS and Sightline, and they've been super helpful throughout this entire journey. And now with the deal, like a lot of the USA clubs can benefit from it, and we can also obviously benefit from it at the national team level. And so tagging might be something that your regular club doesn't necessarily go into, but certainly on the national team level, that is what you have to do. Like you do it right after the game, and when you are at championships, try to really analyze your opponents, get the stats of the game, and like get all the details out of it. And that's where it really helps you to tag a game. And what we've been using it for on the beach side recently, especially during COVID, where we transitioned to completely to doing everything virtual. A lot of the tagging, I can just say a player wants to look at left wing actions and shots, right? If I have the games already pre-tagged, then all I do is query for the right tags, and I have a sequence of all the actions from this particular game, either of that player or in general, and I can I can just go with that player through all these scenes and discuss what they see, what we see, what are the improvements. So especially for someone coming from, I think, the professionalized world of sports, it's almost a level that American players expect our sport to be at, where we are clearly not right now at a level, right? Yep. And I think it will be a great opportunity for us to reach that level. And then the other part of XPS is, as you said, like this whole practices and a little bit of player management, but especially practices and playbook management. And due to the great sharing capabilities, we have a great opportunity here to build a database of practices that can just be shared across the clubs. So if every club just makes an effort to record their practices that they run in XPS and share it with the community, then our database of practices will grow in an instant. And like, since the accounts are more or less connected, every club then has access to it. So you're a new club, you probably don't have a coach at this point. If you're a new college club, for example, right? You might have someone with a little bit of handball experience if you're lucky. But now you are part of this XPS community in the US handball scene, and you have access to those practices that are tagged already with, okay, these are practices for wings, these are practices for back players, this is what you do when you only have 3 people in the training. Like all this stuff, if we take care of maintaining and growing it the right way, it's a huge opportunity for us as the US to grow the education level around how do you coach handball.
That aspect of it, in my opinion, is more valuable than the tagging, quite frankly, because
yeah.
I mean, what you said earlier, your closest game is going to be 6 hours away, and that's if you're lucky, right? So I think by and large, most clubs find themselves practicing 99% of the time and then playing maybe 1% of the time, right? So that sounds like an absolutely invaluable resource for USA Team Handball. So I'm glad that happened.
It's very easy to make plays, and they can even do like animations and send the videos via the app on your phone or on pictograms with like text up along the side of it, so that way it explains what's happening in each step. So I think from like the playbook standpoint, like that's where I get really excited, because I'm like, I was trying to make it in PowerPoint, our plays, and I was like one slide per like motion, and I was just like, there has to be a better way. I found another app, and it was tough to do on my phone because my fingers are fat and I couldn't get the guys to move at the right speed, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then we started using XPS, and I was like, boom, 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 boom. So it's really, really nice to have that. So I don't know. Michi's been using it a lot with the beach team, and it's cool because there's a lot of features that you can do, like live tagging, which I think's insane, probably in my mind, but I'm sure somebody can do that. But like, I think from a beach standpoint, do you guys filter a lot based on like who might be like a target to do like a lot of specialty goals to try to prevent like alley oops and things like kempas, I should say, and what?
Yeah, so you're trying to gauge, first of all, what kind of team are you facing? Is it a team that relies more on alley-oops, so in-flight shots, or does it rely more on spin shots? And then you go down per player of like, okay, this player, if you have a lot of time, you go down to their shooting patterns, right? If they shoot out of the 360 from the left wing with or without a block, where are they more likely to shoot? How do we position ourselves? Where we see where do they have problems in their attack or in their defense, right? Problems that we can exploit on a national team level. That is the level of professionalism that everyone else in the handball world, especially in indoor, looks at. And in beach handball, all the established handball nations will also do that already for beach handball, right? But since beach handball is still fairly young, you don't have everyone doing it right now. So the more you get used to that, and the more you can capitalize on that data to prepare your team appropriately, it helps you in preparation, but also during a tournament to see, okay, who's tired, who might be injured, what are the habits that players have, right? Because in beach, you are always 4 against 3. So you are always in inferiority if you're in the defense. So you have to be smarter, and you have to really know the players that you're facing well in order to play with their heads, right? Yep. If I know, oh, this player is always looking this way, I'm like, I'll just hold my hand here, and then they can't look there.
Sneaky German.
The sneaky stuff, right? But like these things you have to point out, and it's so much easier to point out with a video, and if you have the right sequence to point it out at, right? And that is the level of professionalism that is a must on the national team level, and we've been doing it on the indoor side already, but in beach there is no standard formula. So the beach tagging formula, I actually created that because there was none for beach.
Whoa.
So I created my tagging formula and broke it down. I shared it with the guys from XPS because in order to grow the sport, more in the community also need to know about this.
Yeah.
We got the Steve Jobs of beach handball.
But really?
No, I think I'm very blessed that I have a very analytical mind, and I have the fortune of really being good at computer and software engineering, and that helps me break down stuff. But I am a jack of all trades. Like I do, Joey, you might like this with your Argentinian roots.
Let's see. Oh boy. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, a matcha.
Can I get one?
Handball mug. Wow.
Yes.
What's it gonna take to get a Detroit version of that? That's awesome.
Where did that come? Did Martin make that? How did you get? You made it. Oh my gosh.
So I bought. This is actually from Argentina, so they were super kind.
So cool.
They even made these.
Yeah.
Straws by hand.
Amnesia.
So really, really great. So they just send you the cup like this.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
And then I just painted on it.
Cool.
That's so cool.
Then,
she's crafty, folks. She is crafty.
I've only got like a lame gourd, and it's just sitting on my shelf.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm just crafty like that. I'm jack of all trades, and
sneaky crafty German.
Like, yeah. When I de-stress, like I do this.
Arts and crafts. That's so cool.
I think we should have an arts and crafts segment with Michi.
That'd be fun.
Certainly possible.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Like,
I feel like this is a good segue though to my one of my few last topics here is what is it like then coaching? I mean, you kind of did a whole delve into kind of the analytical side of coaching on the beach side, but my biggest question is once they hired the new head coach, and I'm forgetting her name, red-haired lady.
Lisa Dunn.
Yep, isn't she out of Atlanta?
Yes.
Or so how is that dynamic with you guys being across the country and even difficult for you when a majority of the players are in LA? Is that a true statement?
It is definitely a tension, but honestly, we don't know because we got appointed and then COVID happened.
Yeah, true.
And
True.
nobody was able to travel. Um, but we are getting a stronger group of players also on Atlanta side. We have with the Rhodes sisters and Ashley, three people already living in and near Atlanta. I'm able to practice. They established a beach handball club in Atlanta as well. And we have a couple of other players that are spread out across the country. And it definitely is more logistical effort of us being not in the same place. But we have weekly meetings with the national team where we do video analysis and mindset sessions. So even though we couldn't be together physically, we really felt that we benefited a lot from the past weeks just getting on these calls and talking about what do we want to achieve, where do we want to be as a team. And interestingly, Lisa and we I we only met each other in person for a handful of times, but uh, we played together, or I was the assistant coach back in for Russia in 2018, and she was a player at that time. And I think that was not the first time. The first time was actually back in 2016. We started together with the program in Miami at that time. So that was a crazy trip. And I think all the girls involved back then, we will always remember that trip. But that was the first time we met each other. And maybe over the years, I would say at most we met each other 5 or 8 times. But we have a trust between the two of us and such a good communication. And it helps that she also has German roots. So we both are on the same level of like how we think and how we interact.
The sneakiness is
the sneakiness is transferring. So this dynamic like between the two of us and her being really strong in like ingrained in the American culture as well as knowing the sport culture around it and what it takes to be a great athlete, and me with the analytical part of it, we are just a really well fitted team. Like we complement each other really well, and unfortunately we only had one training camp so far that we could actually stage, and the rest is postponed until COVID is getting not going away, but we are at a stage where we can safely practice again, right? And we are both looking forward to that. Like we're both hungry to play again and like really shape this team also in person, not only through the calls.
What's next? Go ahead, Joey.
Are you going to win the world championship? Yes or no?
It won't be we win it tomorrow thing. I'm for sure not. But we are definitely committed to shape this program into a team that can compete for the medals. And in beach, actually, it is the last World Championships, Greece, who it was their first time participating, and they won the medal. So the turnover in the gold medal, and the turnover in beach is actually, you can have one bad game and that's it, and you do not qualify for the world championship, right? So it's really it was really key to have a consistent performance in beach to play continuously on the higher levels. And so we are definitely looking into doing all we can to prepare the team to contest and like compete for the medals up in the top.
Awesome. What's the next step for the beach team? Like, what's the next upcoming tournament, or is there a training camp or something like that?
So you would like to have clarity on when the world champions are? And I think that was honestly one of the hardest things.
It was Italy,
because
right?
the world championship,
right?
Yeah, they were supposed to be in Italy in July.
That's
when
right.
Italy was at its worst, and
I
we're
totally
like,
forgot.
This is probably not happening. And then the IHF said the games would be postponed, and there were rumors they would happen in November and maybe in a Asian federation. But so far nobody has stepped up, and I honestly, the state that the US is in, I don't know how many the countries would accept American athletes, or if they accept us, the conditions around quarantining before and after the competition, right? Is that feasible for someone who's not being paid to do sports, right? So there's a lot of factors, but we already said that the next step is definitely meeting in person again and have a training camp with everyone involved. And we hope to do it sometime in November. California is still warm enough to do these things in November. So we hope for it, but it is really hard to tell at this point. But that's what and after World Championships, if they get postponed or canceled, right, the next thing are the World Games in Birmingham, Alabama.
That's right.
2022.
Yep.
In Birmingham, Alabama, and the beach handball is part of the World Games. It has been for a long time. So that is our next big, if the World Championships do not happen, that is our next big tournament that we have to have an eye for, aside obviously from the Northern Caribbean Championships to qualify for the next international handball federation tournaments.
Dang.
Super cool.
The world beach game, or I'm just blanking out now. The Birmingham games, EBA, for those of you that did not know, was Player of the Month, I think, a couple months ago. I think it was July, or I guess that was last month.
Yep.
Well, time flies when you're having fun in COVID. But on the other note, so Norca for the men's indoor, word with our team discussions have been going around about they are trying to create like a player bubble. So we would go down 2 days before anything. Basically, that would be like a 2-day preemptive quarantine. You take a test immediately. You'd be in a bubble situation there. If you got, a negative test result, then you could enter the next bubble where all the other athletes would be. And so theoretically, everybody there would be just like the NBA bubble without the, other people coming in and out, the friends of the players. So that's kind of the current state from what I'm being told. How that plays out, still very much up in the air. There's a lot of money going into the COVID testing that needs to, pay for all that, which is pretty steep dollar amount that people don't think about. I know here it's a little different situation, but when you go to another country, test results aren't exactly free. So we'll see how things go in November. That they're still targeting that November date as well, and I don't know. It'll be interesting if that tournament doesn't happen, if we end up sending a team to World Championships. So it sounds like
my money is bold prediction here. If it doesn't happen, the U.S. is going to get a wild card bid. That's just
Boom.
I'm just going to put that out there right now. The U.S. is going to send a team to the World Championship. I would bet. I'm going to bet.
Unless they say COVID situation in the US is too bad, we don't want to deal with that, and then they take another European team.
Oh man!
I think Mustafa would figure out a way. I think he really wants.
He's gonna roll the dice. He says, "Big money, no whammies. Big money, no whammies."
Yep.
And that's the other thing that John Ryan and I have been talking about is the TV and rights for that, which I feel like the last World Championships were on either BN or Olympic Channel.
Olympic Channel.
I think they're on Olympic Channel. So I don't know where the rights are for that right now. And John was saying that people need to be having that conversation, especially if football is still in this kind of nobody knows where football's going here, and we are quickly approaching what would be week 1. So as a season ticket holder for Ohio State, it's very sad that we are now a week and a half away from what would have been not even a week and a half. It's a week tomorrow. We were supposed to start on my birthday next. Is that next Thursday? Dang, my birthday's coming up here. That I'm not prepared for that. But anyway, so yeah, that's one of the things I've been telling people overseas. Like, I don't care what club level you're at. Like, you need to start getting in contact with somebody to send it to Americans, because we got a lot of open TV time and people need to fill it. So
Yeah.
But yeah, Joey, do you have any other questions on that front at all?
Last question, Michi, and this has been awesome. Like, this is, I think we're probably approaching the Chris O'Reilly.
Yeah, we are getting to Chris O'Reilly time.
Interview. But that's a good sign, because it's been a lot of fun talking to you, and I appreciate your dedication and your passion for the sport, and it's cool to know that you're listening and you're processing what's going on. And yeah, so my last question, Michi, is what do you think it's going to take for any city in the U.S. to have not even 300 clubs, but 30 clubs, right? Like Berlin, what's it going to take for the United States of America to become what Germany is and what a lot of countries are, which are handball countries? Not a country that can put together a good national team, not a country that, whatever, like, you can compete internationally, but doesn't necessarily have a handball culture. What's it going to take to make that handball culture happen?
Preface with what do you know what the population of Berlin is? So that people have a
3.5 million.
All right. Okay. 3.5 million. Go.
So
Detroit metro area is like 6 million.
Yeah. So, and this will I don't know, like, people will hate me for that.
Bring the haters. Bring them.
No, because I do think that, unfortunately, we have to go the route of making an American version of handball that fits into basketball gyms. Because yes. I don't see anything in the near future where a city like Detroit, right, all of a sudden has 30 handball gyms that they can play in, official size. So we have to figure out, okay, what is the dimension that fits in 80% of the gyms that we have in the US to translate the game into that, right? And it will not feel like the same game, because it is shorter, and the length of the court does add quite an experience around it. Sure. But if you wanted to go to that handball community level, and like, I think one of the quick wins is, okay, adjust the rules to fit in basketball courts, or in gyms that traditionally have basketball courts, maybe with a little bit more surrounding on it, right? So that is one. And then you have to have the people, and you have to grow the coaches, especially the coaches, or get more people to the comfort level where they feel like they can train a group of people that just want to play handball, right? In Germany, you also have not the numbers and coaches that you would like, but you tend to have that 30-40-year-old player just says, yeah, I'll train the youth team, right? I'll train the third women's team of this club. Like, they just need someone to put down, okay, this practice, and the easier we make that for people to do, the more we will see that, and the more we can grow the game, because that's one of the limitations we have at CalHeat. We have 4 teams if we are at full capacity, but we only have 2 coaches that are really dedicated, and we're missing 2 other coaches. And you see that in the teams, like, they lose interest, the turnover is much higher. I'm like, it takes coaches to build a community. It does not only take players. So court and coaches, CC, court and coaches.
I have many things to say on that. So Joey, if you have, I'm ready. I have like many follow-up points on this. So
super insightful, Michi. Super insightful. Thank you.
Thing one is that I think Joey and I are semi in agreement, if not fully in agreement, with those statements, because Joey took a lot of flack for his 3-on-3 league, which completely like changed the normal handball mindset. But if you look on the flip side, he got a whole bunch of random people that I would say wouldn't normally come out and play in that, and they've had a great time. And that's really what we're trying to do. I've counted 2, but I've only said one thing, so just ignore my fingers. I'm just going to keep putting more things on my hand. Now I've forgotten what I was going to say. Fingers. So the Armada, we have practice in an elementary school gym, and it's essentially not big enough for like 4 guys, but we'll run basically like 4v4 or 5v5 and just have the whole 3-point arc basically be the 6-meter area, and that works pretty well. To your point, it's short court, so the goalie can shoot and actually kind of be in play. It's almost more like a beach style game on that short court. But I think the easiest one of the easier situations for us to get involved with, I think on a court standpoint, is like the situation we have at Ohio State, which is similar to a lot of like basketball court situations where you have 2 basketball courts side by side, and if you run perpendicular to that, you're about 6 meters short. You're like of the proper length, and 6 meters, it's a pretty good distance, but at the end of the day, it's better than nothing. And so to your point, finding that kind of right space until we can start producing these, because the thing is we really have to build a facility that can accommodate handball, because a lot of times everything's focused on basketball and volleyball, and you can easily put multiple volleyball courts on a basketball court, but you're never thinking anything bigger than a basketball court. And so some of my associates and I have been discussing about building a handball facility that can then accommodate, basketball and volleyball for all of the operating, income basically, as well as an esports breakdown. So we're pursuing that. It's not a cheap job, but something to think about.
Yeah, and I mean that's a reality that I know from Germany, right? If you go into a gym in Germany, any gym, you have all sports and all the lines for all the sports on the court. So yes, sometimes it's confusing. You don't really remember, was the handball line now the red line or the blue line? I don't know. But you have the ability to play all these sports in a single gym. And again, I think so the danger with shrinking the court is that the US makes a new handball game out of it, and then we will have the Super Bowl of handball, and the US has no interest in playing with the rest of the world because the US is used to running their own machine and only operate within the bounds of US, which is large enough, and the market is large enough, right? But I think that is the fear that a lot of handball players have of like, okay, if you have all these teams playing on shorter courts, will we end up making that the official size, or do we have still the path back to the full size of the court and have the transition into the international handball scene, right? And we've seen that. I mean, handball started as an outdoor sport on the soccer field, so the decision between 2 court sizes and going for the smaller court, that has happened already. So I think that's why a lot of people are really fearful or cannot have a hard time imagining handball on a smaller court. And that's why we need to find this court size where we say, okay, this still feels like handball. The way to the full court is not too far, but we can fit it in more gyms.
Yeah, I think the big thing is just getting more people touching a handball. So that's my thing, is that I realize that there's a scare there, but those people shouldn't be scared of the people that are just going to play handball, and then they might not ever want to take it to the next level, but they're not going to like monetize and popularize the mini handball. But I don't know. That's just my stance, is that that would be at a recreational level. And if you want to go play in the big boy leagues, you're playing on the big boy courts. No different than, high school, NBA, college all have different basketball dimensions. We could have different dimensions for recreational and, kind of that pathway. I don't know if Joey, that's what you
look at beach.
Yeah.
Beach is the smaller court. beach handball is handball. It's new. It's different. And, somebody probably thought they were crazy, whoever invented beach handball. I don't know what the history is, but.
Well, no, that has a physical component. I mean, beach handball
That's
originated.
a lot to run on that sand.
Yeah, like you don't want to run that much on sand, even if you are in shape. The 10-minute game that you're playing gets you winded. So like even in international competitions, like players sub out after 5 minutes to get a breather, or they play in constant substitution mode. So it is tough too. I think that's a big physical component there. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun and a great alternative for anyone who's limited when it comes to space.
Well, we have
thank you so much, Michi.
1 minute left on the Zoom. So this has been fantastic. We didn't get to talk about the wildfires. I will give a shout out to the wildfires here when the Zoom ends, and Michi, for those that are watching, she's okay at her house, but some of the other members of CalHeat are suffering from wildfires. So we want to make sure that everybody's aware of that, the real CalHeat, which is Mother Nature. So Michi, thank you very much. It's been fantastic
Thank you.
having you on as our top shooter. So stay tuned for future episodes, as always.
Always. Take care, guys.
You too. Stay safe.
Yep. As I always say, keep shooting, shooters. Oh, we lost Joey there. That was perfect timing. Oh, we lost Michi there. So for all of you that are looking to catch up with Michi and her day-to-day life, you can find her on Instagram at m1ch1.m. I know those of you that listen on Spotify, you can't really see much of what we were talking about, but we pretty much covered all our topics, so that was pretty cool. We'll try to get our last